All right. So what I want to do for these to talk about them is I want to start with, we'll do each one. I'll read it and then we'll go group by group, and I'll start over here and work my way this way and then back this way for each one of them, so each group gets a chance to go first on one of them. So a salesman is fired from his job soon before payment of a sales commission is due to him. As a result, the commission is paid to his supervisor, the very person who fired him. What do you all think about that? What's your decision?
So on ours, we say that we believe the employee should be the recipient of the commission if the employee is clearly the reason the sale was obtained and he didn't use any unsavory tactics, then the money should be awarded to him. It's just that simple.
Okay, so you think that in this case, the action of the employer is unethical?
Yes, and we also said based on these facts alone, and we wanted to apply that to
Okay.
all of the questions that we answered, because some of
Based
them
on the
are-
limited facts that you
Yes.
have. Okay. So what theory would support the employee in this?
If he was using good business tactics, and you could link directly his firing to the supervisors wanting to get in on that commission, say it was a really large account and he sold, $10 million worth of equipment, that's going to be a large commission check. So if you could link directly to the fact that he, made the sale using good business tactics and it was directly linked to him, then he should be awarded the money.
Okay. Which theory though supports the position of the employee?
Don't know.
You got basically four choices: utilitarianism, duty ethics, virtue ethics, moral minimum.
I would probably say duty, just because the employer has the duty to pay you for your work.
I think that's right. I think this is a clear duty. You have an obligation to pay people what you say you're going to pay them. And if they're commission-based, a lot of commission-based salespeople are not necessarily paid, a lot of money. Most of it's going to be commission-based. I think you have an ethical duty, and you may have a legal duty, a contractual duty to pay them as well on that. What position would support or justify maybe the employer's position?
I mean, if you could prove that the employee lied during the sale to make the sale, or something like that, just used an unsavory tactic to obtain the business, then I think maybe you could rightfully say that he didn't deserve the money.
Yeah, I think this one, if just based on the facts alone, is there a theory that could be used to support, just based on the prima facie case that's been made there, is there a theory that could be used to support the business? No? You don't think so?
When it's vague, I think you always go in favor of the little man. I don't know.
What did you all think on that one?
We said that
I think we agreed that it was okay to him, like essentially in Oklahoma, like you can fire someone, like we talked about, you said earlier, you can fire someone for any cause. You don't even have to have cause.
Right.
For not liking someone, you just fire them.
Yep.
But we thought about the commission, and like he was saying, if they did their job correctly, they should be awarded the commission. Now, if they lied about maybe like the product, like what it can actually do for who they're selling it to, then that could be justification for firing them.
Okay.
For taking the commission.
All right.
it looked sketchy when he got fired and the person that fired him got the money.
Like his direct supervisor
that
gets
does
the money.
that
That's
sort
why
of that.
It raised a red flag, and we needed more information.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it does raise a red flag. I think what you have is you have a presumption here that that's unethical. That it's unethical for the person. Like, if nobody got the commission, it would appear better.
or for
or if
spread
you-
across other sales reps.
Right, or if you paid him the commission that was due to him, and just you said you're fired for whatever reason, but you paid the commission, that would look better. Okay, so what theory do you think supports the sales position, the salesperson in this? Which theory did you choose? by the way, you could make an argument not just based on duty. So you all chose duty.
Yeah, duty ethics.
You chose duty as well, okay? Is there any position that could justify the employer just based on the facts here?
Utilitarian.
Okay. You think utilitarian could justify the employer's position?
I mean, if the commission's going, I guess if the commission's going to, it depends if the commission's going to the supervisor, or if the company gets, like you said, if nobody gets commission.
It says the commission is paid to his supervisor.
What if the supervisor was the one that actually earned it and the salesman just took credit for it?
You could have that situation.
Yeah.
I mean, you could see this where that's one of the things that I think you could think about if you had more facts. If you're in a training program, right, it's not atypical for you to split your commission with your supervisor who's training you. And if the supervisor really did most of the work, would it then be ethical for the supervisor to get the commission? I don't know, maybe. What'd you all at the back say? Who's speaking for you on this one?
I got this one. I got this one. Yeah. So with the information given, I'm going to say that you can't really make a judgment. You need more information for sure, because I don't know why the guy was fired.
Okay.
If he was late all the time, or if he was conducting some kind of legal business, or he was whatever the reason was, then you've got to have more information. But for what's listed, I would say, like they said, that the supervisor getting the commission, that's a red flag. That's not cool. So if the guy got fired and he got paid, then I'd have no problem with it. Since he did get fired and didn't get paid, it's a little weird. I need more information. But I guess I would say from the employer's perspective, I would say this is probably duty, or not duty based, probably utilitarian. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say for that. I mean, if the guy was causing detriment to the company, then it's for the good of the company that he's fired. But if he wasn't, then
Yeah, this one is, I mean, just on a prima facie, again, just looking at this from a face value, this seems highly unethical. I'm going to fire you and then I get paid the commission. That seems highly unethical. However, it would be unethical for the company. Basically, wouldn't it be a windfall for the company to keep the commission if they kept it? I mean, it seems bad. I suppose you could justify it on utilitarian perspective in that it's a reward to supervisors, and it promotes the idea of value among supervision and taking responsibility. I don't know. That's a tougher one to do. What did you all, who's your spokesman for this one on this?
We just said duty-based, just because it's their right to fire somebody. They didn't give a reason why, so it might have just been a coincidence on the employer's side. And then obviously the employee, like, that's unethical. Like, you have an obligation to pay somebody.
Okay, so you think it's duty on the employee's side that they could argue you're being unethical because you have a duty to pay me. On the employer side, you thought it could also be duty.
If you're going to put
ethics.
yourself in the employer's view, that could be.
You could also, right? We have a right, and as part of exercising our right to fire you for any reason whatsoever, that's part of our duty-based ethics. Okay. Yeah, I think you can argue a duty-based from the employer's perspective in that we have a duty to fire you if you're doing something wrong. As you've all said, if you had more information and you found out that the salesman was doing something unethical that could cost the company its reputation or harm its brand equity, I think that would be a right of the company to say we have a duty to protect our brand equity and our shareholders. But you don't know. I mean, just given as it is, this is one where if you have increasing shades of gray, you could make an argument maybe for the employer, but just on the one or two sentences that you have, it's hard to do. If you said, for example, again, going back to the salesman is being trained by a supervisor, he is under the supervision, the supervisor is the one who did all of the prospecting. In sales, what's one of the hardest parts of the sales process? For those of you that are sales majors, it's what? Yeah, it's a lot of times, I really think that one of the most difficult things, the textbook in the first class in sales that we have, the Lil textbook that both Professor Kaiser and I use, says that the most difficult part of sales is for salespeople to be told no. that may be the most difficult emotional part of the sales process. But the big work is actually in prospecting and really weeding out just a lead from somebody who is truly qualified. That takes a lot of work. And it's one of the things that I think is most difficult for salespeople because it really requires, it's not something that's a social activity. It just requires grinding through information and trying to get to that person who is the qualified lead, the person that you have to talk to. So if he did all of the work and he went in and the salesman maybe just did the presentation and didn't do it well, and the supervisor had to clear it up or close the sale, would you say that it was ethical for him to get the commission in that case? Okay. All right. This one is a real case. I can tell you what the case is from number 2 after we talked about it. And we'll start here. An employee is fired when a mandatory urine analysis detected nicotine in her urine. The company prohibits smoking by all employees. The company argues that increasing healthcare costs brought about by smoking justifies this action. Now, the first one, just based on the facts that are presented and nothing else, is a much more clear-cut win for the employee. This one is a closer call. Just on the facts alone, this one is a closer call. So what did you all say on this one?
So from the employer side, they prohibit smoking from all employees.
Okay.
Ethical from the employer side.
What makes it ethical from the employer side? Which theory can you use?
Higher, so duty-based. Well, we put duty-based in the fact because, like, that's the rule that they make, but the reasoning behind why they did it is higher healthcare costs, which therefore higher costs for them because they give healthcare to their employees. So
Okay.
that would be the reasoning behind that.
Which is that duty?
Duty
Then-
or utilitarian? Just for-
I think the higher cost is utilitarian, right? I mean, that's definitely the cost-benefit analysis. You are costing us money, and by the way, and that affects all employees' benefits. It's not just yours. If you're smoking, it affects everybody, right? If the company has to spend more money on health care, they're probably going to have less money to do what? Pay raises, bonuses, pay dividends to shareholders, things like that. This was actually an insurance company in Minnesota that did this. And as a result of it, a lot of states, including the state of Oklahoma, have smoker anti-discrimination laws. That shouldn't surprise you that in Oklahoma we love to smoke, right? So they have smoker anti-discrimination laws. Interestingly enough, Chesapeake won't fire you when good old Aubrey was in charge of Chesapeake, but they did charge you more. So they gave you free insurance on your insurance premium for the employee if you didn't smoke. If you smoked, they charged you a higher rate for the employee coverage.
Couldn't you
the
make the
employer.
argument that since typically smokers die at a younger age, they spend less time sick in the hospital, so?
That's what Harvard did a study and said that smoking is actually socially beneficial. Because although they have increased healthcare costs, they're all right at the end and they die a lot faster, whereas the overall net social benefit is that those people are not drawing Social Security. I mean, the average age for a non-smoker, for example, teachers have long lives. I don't know why, but if they don't smoke, teachers, by and large, on the whole, live a long time after retirement. And why do you think that is? Why? Anybody want to guess why they think teachers live a long time?
They feel fulfilled?
They feel fulfilled. Okay, what else? Anything? Any other guesses?
Can't they retire earlier or no?
Well, a lot of teachers' retirement systems do allow pretty good retirement. I mean, one of the things that is being a problem and that they're addressing now and as part of the budget process or as an issue is, for example, you can go into the military at a very young age, say 18 years of age, do 20 years and retire with full military retirement. That means that you're retiring at what? 38. You're retiring at 30, and the military is paying you for the rest of your life, a retirement, which is not bad. So what do most military people do? They go into the military, they serve their 20, they draw military retirement, and then they do what?
Get another job.
They get another job, and they basically double dip for the rest of their lives. We had a guy here whose name was Russell Jones. He flew Air Force Two. He was a marketing professor. And his job in the Air Force was, he started out flying transports, cargo transports in Vietnam. And then he flew weather planes into the eyes of hurricanes for the Air Force. And he worked his way up to flying executives for the government. So he flew Alexander Haig when Alexander Haig was Supreme Allied Commander in Europe of NATO. And then he got promoted again, and he flew Air Force Two, and he flew the vice presidents. So he flew Spiro T. Agnew and for Nixon, and he flew Johnson for Kennedy, and then he retired. And he went and got his PhD in marketing and came back to UCO and basically was drawing his UCO salary, his military retirement. Now he's drawing his teacher's retirement from the state of Oklahoma, his military retirement, and Social Security. So he's a triple dipper on the government, right? And of course, the irony of this is that he's a Republican who hates the government and constantly rails against, and he's never had a job that wasn't a government job. And I pointed this out to him. But of course, all of the government jobs that he had were good government jobs, right? So just a little interesting fact there. But you could retire at 38 from the military. Well, similar things happened in teachers' retirement systems. There used to be, for example, in the Oklahoma teachers' retirement, a rule of 80. So if you started really young in the teachers' retirement system, you could retire. Now, they increased the rule to deal with this to be the rule of 90, which meant that your age and years of service have to equal 90 before you can retire. Or you have to reach, or there's an or clause, an either or clause, which is you have to reach the age of 62. But even at the age of 62, teachers generally live a good long time. And the reason that they live a good long time is generally they're more highly educated than the populace as a whole. So they have what? They generally have healthier lifestyles. The more educated you are, the less likely you are to do what?
Eat McDonald's.
Eat McDonald's, the less likely you are to smoke. The less, and because they are highly educated, they generally have more interests that keep them alive. One of the things that happens is that for a lot of people, the day you retire, doesn't matter what age you are, if you stop working, the day you retire, your odds of dying increase by 50%. And the reason for that is that human beings need purpose in their life. And if they just go home and sit down, well, teachers, a lot of them, have lots of interests beyond what it was because they're sort of interested in education and continuing learning and things like that. And so they live for a long time. That means that they're drawing teachers' retirement for a long time. Most teachers will have drawn out far more than they ever paid in teachers' retirement within something like 5 years. And they're also drawing Social Security. So Harvard did this study where they did a econometrics analysis of this and said, yeah, smoking is good because people die. Yeah, they have a lot of healthcare costs, but they're all at the end and their lives are shorter. They're not living like teachers who live 20 and 30 and 40 years drawing teachers' retirement. And so it may be a net benefit. However, from the company standpoint, what else is wrong with, so what did you all come up with from your answer to the company on the urine analysis? Since I have the thing over there, I'll go back this way.
Well, we just said that since cigarettes are legal, that it's the choice of the employee whether or not they will smoke. An employee or an employer can't tell you not to drink a Coke, which is proven to be detrimental to your health. So on that same note, they can't tell you not to partake of a cigarette. Since it's legally allowed activity, they can't tell you you can't do it on your own time. They can, however, tell you where you can and can't smoke on their premises.
Right. Okay, so you're basically, you guys came up with sort of a slippery slope argument, which is, where does it stop? If you say that a company can fire somebody for urine, could they fire fat people?
No, we said they can't. We said because it's based on the...
No, but that's what your argument is, right? Basically, it's a slippery slope argument that If you could fire people for cigarettes,
Then you can fire them for a multitude of.
right, could you fire them for, I mean, but this is where it gets interesting with shades of gray. A lot of students have problems with the smoking thing, but if you say, can they fire them for drug use? For marijuana use? Can they, almost everybody agrees that companies should be able to test for marijuana use. They wanted to do that, by the way, here at UCO. We had a vice president at one point in time, an assistant vice president, who came to us when I was in the associate general counsel's office. When I was associate general counsel in the legal counsel's office, who came to us and wanted to test everybody on campus for drugs because the law says we can. We can test employees for drugs. And I said, well, he was an assistant vice president for administration and finance. And I said, you want to test the faculty? Yes. I want to test I want to insist that they have to
Fire all
have.
the liberal arts teachers.
Right. That was my response was, well, you're not going to have a college. You'll have a college of business, because generally those of us in the college of business are fairly conservative. You're not going to have a college of liberal arts. I mean, I can tell you from my friends over there, I know that a lot of them partake of the wacky tobacco, right? And so, you're not going to have a liberal arts college for very long. And my boss, who is general counsel, said, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. Now, we do test you if you get in an accident. If you're driving a UCO van, or if you're transporting kids or something like that, yeah, we absolutely will test you and we'll fire
certain
you.
jobs would imply that you not partake of anything like that just because of what they entail, the physicality of the job or something along those lines, or just the necessary cognitive ability to drive to safely keep students alive or something like that. But if it doesn't affect job performance, I don't know why they're so discriminatory about it.
Right. I mean, is it, again, this is where it becomes more of a shades of gray. Is it dependent upon the job that they do with regard to not tobacco, but with regard to smoking marijuana? Should it be more dependent upon, okay, I think we all acknowledge that, yeah, how many of you have seen the movie with Denzel Washington, Flight, about the airplane, and he's a remarkable pilot, because in that story he actually manages to safely land an aircraft after he'd been hopped up on what? Cocaine and whiskey, just like the song. And he had stolen 2 bottles, and that's how he gets caught, right? Because they inventory, when they have a plane crash, they go through the entire plane, and they knew that at the point at which the aircraft started to have experienced distress due to turbulence, that they hadn't begun beverage service. And so they had an inventory of, they knew that there shouldn't have been any alcohol missing, and there were 2 containers of, I think, vodka that were obviously taken out, that he came back, he distracted the flight attendants, had them going, he got on the PA, and he sneaks 2 things of vodka. I think obviously we don't want our airline pilots drunk. But should you care as a company if or the forklift operator in the warehouse, right? But if your accountant partakes of marijuana on the weekends when it's not affecting his ability to punch in those 10 keys, do you care? I don't know. What did you all say in the back for your response to this?
For which one?
The employee is fired when a mandatory urine analysis detects nicotine in her urine, number 2.
Well, so from what we know, it seems like it's company policy, is what it looks like. So, I mean, they had the right to fire him because they violated that policy of smoking, which is a ridiculous policy. But we applied duty ethics because, they broke the rules in this situation.
Okay.
But we also said that the company could have programs to help employees stop smoking if they wanted to retain their employees. So.
Okay. That's one of the things that they don't tell you in this. The company actually did this. Before the guy who was the president of, it was an insurance company, and they provided health insurance benefits to other employees. That's what they sold. And that's one of the reasons that he justified it. He said, look, it's antithetical to our sort of mission of promoting health to have people that are smoking. And before he did it, he said, we're giving you, I think it was 9 months to quit, and we'll pay for any smoking cessation program that you want to attend. If you want to go to, a rehab and get smoking, we'll pay for any of it. If you want to get the patch, if you want to get the nicotine gum, which I can tell you is absolutely disgusting, having been a smoker and tried to quit using the gum, it's gross. It's absolutely horrific. But he said, we'll pay for any of that. We'll pay for patches, we'll pay for support groups, whatever you want in order to do that. Does that change the answer at all?
I think it's fair that they gave them those options, so if they decided to keep smoking, then, they knew what to expect.
But what if they test them for, again, 9 months later, and they're for nicotine, and they've been using nicotine patches? That's where it gets.
Well, I mean, then I guess, you're supposed to be off of it by the end of the 9 months. I don't know, you're right, that would show up. If you were using nicotine gum or you're addicting. The other thing that could happen is that you could test positive if your spouse was a smoker and smoked around you.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, I mean, you could test. And actually, he did carry it one step further after that. He started saying that they would fire you if you test positive, even if your spouse was the one that was smoking, and they would not cover your spouse. Now, I'm not sure that you can do that under the ACA now. I'm not sure that that's allowable. What did you guys say?
We didn't really have a problem with it. I mean, when you enter into an employer-employee relationship with a company, you sign a labor contract that says, "Hey, this is our rules. Abide by it, or you don't have a job here."
Uh-huh.
So I'm sure they were made aware that they weren't allowed to smoke. So I guess you could say from the utilitarian perspective, I mean, they're gonna have more money to pay out bonuses, pay raises. I don't know, premiums are gonna be lower for the rest of the people who don't, smoke. So health insurance will be lower, so I think for the good of the rest of the people.
So, what about, now, this case actually, this employer that did this healthcare insurance company, he actually enforced it on employees that had been hired under a different standard. Does it change your answer if you said, okay, you should be able to do this going forward, but you should grandfather in employees that are already there?
Yeah, so the grandfather people allowed to smoke?
What?
Are the grandfather people allowed to
Yeah,
smoke?
the grandfathered people should be, and that's what a lot of employees said, look, this was not a rule when I started. You didn't have this. If I had known that you had this rule when I started, I never would have applied here. But you didn't have this rule when I started, and now you have this rule, and it's not fair to me.
That sounds like tough luck. I don't think that the grandfather thing is.
What if they can't perform their job without nicotine? Because I know, say you
You need to put them in some rehab.
I like it though.
Well, I'm saying if you're used to smoking, you can perform the job well. Maybe you're the best at your job because you smoke. But if you're not allowed to smoke and throughout the whole workday, how do you perform your job? There's people
there are people, and I've heard this argument before from smokers that say that, yeah, I mean, smoking helps me relax, and it allows me to think more clearly because I go outside and I breathe deeply in
Autumn has a counterpoint.
That's not efficient though, because if they need it that bad, that they need that nicotine, how many times a day are they gonna have to stop, go take a 15-minute break to go smoke?
That is exactly the counterpoint that employers make, is that no, you're wasting my time because you're basically stealing time because you're having to go outside and smoke. And for example, here at UCO, because we're a smoke-free campus now, what does that mean for our employees that smoke? You cannot smoke on UCO's campus. You can get ticketed if you are smoking. So what do they have to do? And I see the audio-visual guy who's head of the copy room and the audio-visual stuff over in liberal arts. I've known him for a long time. He's a heavy smoker, and I see him booking it, like 3 times a day, across the parking lot to go stand on the street corner across the street to smoke a cigarette. And then, come back. What about alcohol? Could you do the same thing though? Could you say no alcohol?
Yes.
Now, let me go back to the argument and see if this analogy makes any sense to you about the employees. The employees at this company said, look, I don't have a problem with him instituting these rules for new people, which sounds a little unethical to say that. But their argument, I think, did make some sense. They said, I never would have applied here, but I've worked here for this company for 15 years before this guy bought the company, and that was not a condition of my employment when I started. We are rewriting the tenure and promotion policies in the College of Business. And because we want to get AACSB accreditation, we are going to require more publications of our faculty. Now, I was hired under the current tenure, so this is one of the things that's going to affect me. I was hired under this program where the tenure and promotion policy and expectations were that you had 2 publications in 5 years, and it didn't matter what the journal was that published it. You just had to have a peer-reviewed journal, 2 of them in 5 years, and 1 supporting thing. Now, it seems that what they're going to do for tenure and promotion going forward is they're going to say you have to have 5 in 5 years. That policy will go into effect next fall when I go up for promotion. Should I be grandfathered in under the old guidelines?
Do you have a problem with the 5?
I have 5.
Then it doesn't affect you very much. You're fine.
But it could. There are people that it will affect. That they will say,
But you asked me that then. You asked me about you. You asked me if it just affects you. If you have 5, then you're fine.
yeah, but some of the 5 that I have don't meet they want you to have an acceptance rate of 30% or less in the journal, and some of my pubs don't have that. So it could affect me. They could say your acceptance rate is the acceptance rate is 50% in the journal.
Then yes,
Businesses change, businesses evolve, and businesses have to adapt because the outside world is changing and evolving. So I mean, you can't just expect a business to stay the same course. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, it's just, laws are changing, everything's changing. They have to adapt, and that's one of the things that they need to. I don't know what requirement was that they were trying to get on, but if that's something that they need, that's gonna fulfill that requirement, that just makes
For the better of the university.
Yeah.
I hope this is still recording. Yes. Okay, it's still going. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's fair to tell me, that it changes the semester that I go up for tenure. Does it?
Are you being allotted an extra amount of time?
No.
No, it's 5 years.
No.
It's
It's 5 and 5.
It's 5.
That's pretty. That doesn't seem very fair. Because if, like you said, if some people have 2 and you're giving me a certain amount of time, I'm not getting another extra 3 years to put in getting my other 3. That doesn't seem very fair.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you could even make an argument. Now, I don't know that that's what's going to happen. They in the past, what they've always done is the university has always said, you get, just like,
Tell them it's not ethical.
in the past, the university has always said, you get the program under which you were hired under. At least initially. And then we can change it for promotion, but you get to go up for tenure under the program. What about this? And this is the similar argument. You all have catalog rights. If we switched a program, and we have changed the professional sales program in a number of ways to strengthen that program. Should we be able to say to you, sucks to be you, but the new catalog says that to graduate, you have to take these additional classes.
I actually found that out this semester.
Yeah.
I thought I had to take 3 more classes. Found out I'm on 13, 14. Yes.
Yeah, you have catalog. You can go back to the catalog if you have been continuously enrolled at the university, you have catalog rights under the catalog that was in existence the year that you were admitted to the university. And so when we switch degree programs, we can't now say, and wouldn't you say it's inherently unfair of us to say, oh, you know what, we just decided you're going to have to take 9 more hours. Sorry, sucks to be you. Isn't that what the employee is saying? Is that I was hired, and this was not an expectation or a condition of my employment.
We're taking on more.
And you shouldn't be able to hold me to a standard that, was not expected.
Is what it is.
He's making a good point here. We're taking on water, folks.
All right, so you're willing to let me just say, okay, you have to take 3 more hours.
Do I have a choice? What am I gonna do? What if I say no? I'm not gonna take 3 more hours. Well, you're not gonna do a degree, so I don't have a choice. You do it.
Yeah, but wouldn't you say that's inherently unfair?
Absolutely, I'm gonna bitch about it, but like, there's nothing you can do about it. Like,
You feel like they tell you that all the time?
They tell me
it's like every
that happened to him, he just said that happened to him, I mean, they do say that, but they don't.
All right, so we stopped at number 2. We'll finish these up on Thursday, then we'll talk about